Yes?
I don't understand how it's possible to see the light there when
Good. Right.
Where is it coming from if we see it?
Right.
Where we think we see it?
So, thank you. I forgot to mention that. This is due to the base rate of cells firing. The visual cells are just periodically going off because they're bored and have nothing better to do. And so these periodic just misfires are what you end up seeing as these little specks of light. Does that make sense?
So the cells are creating the
Yep.
light?
Yeah. So your photoreceptors are just firing without any light being there. And since they're firing, stuff further down or further up the stream say, okay, well, if that cell fired, there must have been a light there. So I'm going to perceive a light. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
What about rubbing your eyes? And sometimes you see light.
Yeah. That is, if you rub your eye right, you can starve some of your photoreceptors of blood, and so they kind of pass out for a second. So that's one part of it. Another part is you're manually stimulating them, which can cause them to accidentally go off. Okay. Question?
Do blind people get the same because they're in photographic, do they get the flashing of the light?
Okay, so do blind people see these? It depends. So there's many, many different types of blindness. So cortical blindness, where it's due to a problem in the visual cortex, probably not. If their blindness is because they have bad photoreceptors, they might still see it because stuff higher up is still firing. If they're blind because of a faulty eyeball, like their cornea is no good, they'll definitely see it. And interestingly, depending on the type of blindness, people still have really good light discrimination, so they can tell when somebody walks in front of them or something. So, okay. I think I saw another question this way. Yeah.
Is that like the same thing when you like flash the camera? Like how you still see the flash after?
That is a perfect after image. So in that case, it's you bleached basically these cells and they do not want to fire. They're going to take their sweet time getting back to a point where they can continue firing. So it's basically an after image. Good questions. Yes?
So the after image is based on like a overload?
Yeah. So if you imagine a bunch of cells like with the spiral, the outward cells are just so excited that they just keep firing off their cannonballs. They can only keep up the excitement so long, and after a bit, they get tired. And so when you take away the outward stimulus, they are exhausted. They're going to take a little nap. But the other cells, like the inward cells, are still chugging along at their base rate. And so the brain does lots of interesting calculations, one of them looking at the comparison between outward versus inward motion. And since you have the base rate versus your tired cells, it's thinking it's inward motion is what's going on there. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So back to our idioretinal light. Is this bottom up or top down? Bottom up, good. It's the cells just kind of messing up this information stream on its way through. Okay, so this is the blind spot demo. If you recall, everybody has at least, well, 2 blind spots, 1 per eye, where there's just no visual information getting absorbed at all. So for this, if it doesn't work for you, it seemed to work really well in that part of the classroom earlier. There is an example in your textbook, so go try it at home. It's fun. So on the next slide, cover your left eye, look at the T on the left, and see what happens to the dot on the right. So if I got the distance right, yeah. So it doesn't, you don't have a hole in your vision, it just kind of fills in. Yay, blind spots. So I'm guessing that most everybody got it. If you didn't get it, I do encourage you to try it at home. You can also get quite savvy at doing this. So if you're bored in class one day, obviously not here, you can fill in your professor's head. Make it go away. Okay, so why is this perception not equaling reality? Again? The thought's still there, but you can't see it. Good. More scientifically, you're not accurately perceiving that part of the world. Is this bottom up or top down? You can make arguments for both. So this is one of those cases where it's good to think. You can say it's bottom up because of the filling in of information based on surrounding stuff that the brain's just doing without your control. You don't have any, well, your memory of the dot being there definitely isn't influencing it. But you could say it's top down based on where the argument of where the fill-in happens. So this is one of those cases where it is a little bit of a head scratcher. Okay. This example is from your textbook and from class on Monday. What do you see? Faces in addition to the cowboy with his horses. Great. And why is this perception not necessarily equaling reality? Right. So if we were to see this in the real world and set it up or stage it so this worked, in reality, there would be no faces there. Just be a bunch of rocks that happen to look like a face. Our perception is very strongly that there is a face there staring at the guy. So, is this bottom up or top down? This is pretty much top down. And it's because you have these space areas in your brain that help pull out this information. And you can fight against it and just try to see the rocks for rocks. But you're going to see it as top down. Okay. So now, we're going to go through a couple errors in perception. What we just went through were other examples, but with these, we're going to explicitly go through why perception is breaking. Okay, so first, why do we study these? We study these because they're informative. Trying to figure out the different processes going on in the black box of our head is ridiculously hard. And so when perception breaks, it's kind of a hint. And we can go through and use this hint to figure out what processes are going on. Also, a lot of these are happy accidents. The motion after effect was first discovered by a guy staring at a waterfall for a period of time and looked away to a couple trees and saw him floating away. He wondered what's going on with that, investigated it further, and we figured out the motion after effect stuff. Okay. So processing the visual world is incredibly hard, especially since it's a lot of information, and we usually don't have unlimited time to process this information. So over the course of time, we've figured out shortcuts. Well, not we. We've developed shortcuts in processing to kind of ease this process, make it quicker. And these shortcuts can go wrong. And so one of the things that is really difficult to process is depth. We live in a three-dimensional world, but as soon as the eye gets the information, it becomes a flat picture, basically. And so we have to do things to figure out the depth from these flat pictures. One of these cues is relative size and height. So what does it look like is happening in this picture? Okay, so big guy chasing the little guy, big guy in back, little guy up front. In all reality, this is an optical illusion. The monsters are the same size. I believe these are posted, so